So we shall wait. Hi everyone. We shall wait for 7 o'clock. I can see there are people who are already here. It's nice to see. Yes. So hello everyone. I've been invited by the SFI JNU unit to talk about harassment and consent on social media today. I think it's an extremely important thing to discuss, especially at a time when we are spending extraordinarily large amount of time on social media and on this whole under this whole atmosphere of anxiety which is making us rather restless, and we are often left without any sense of direction about what we want to do. So many of us are feeling rather restless, unable to write, unable to constructively read or think. At this time, it is really, really important to talk about harassment on social media. Let us recognize together what is social media harassment and what would be the structure of consent. Now, at the very beginning, I want to say that I would love to have a sharing session. I would love to take questions or comments, and I would like you to be interactive. I would like to read a certain portion because I think it's very important to get all the correct points across in a limited amount of time, and then I will stop for comments which might be of interest, which might actually enhance a kind of dialogic exchange in between. So I hope this will be something that is interactive, though I know the limitations of Facebook Live, and I'm trying to act smart on Facebook Live. This is the first time I'm going live. In the very beginning, I would like to ask you 3 questions. How many of you do not really care about how many people liked your post? So do you look at likes? How many people like it? Do you do it? Do you post because you want to see how many people are looking at it? The second question I would like you to keep in mind is, when you post something, what is your driving motivation? To say something that you could not otherwise express, or thought was inappropriate to do so in a face-to-face situation? Is that sometimes the case. The third one is another question I would just like you to have in your mind. To make, do you do it to make use of social media as a performance space that helps you become what you otherwise cannot be? So these are important things that you keep in mind while we talk, because it is something, harassment is something on social media which is many a times almost inadvertently done. Almost like, it's a space where actual social etiquettes do not matter. So things we talk about, hopefully, with a lot of interactions from you guys, will be able to address our anxieties about how to deal with such harassments, which actually can cause anxiety, stress, and a lot of trouble for the people unknowingly or knowingly, particularly viciously created under viciously created circumstances. So there are 3 types of harassment that I'm going to focus on. First is virtual harassment. So through all kinds of conversations all around, we have got a certain kind of a, not very clear, but still an idea about yes is yes and no is no in social interactions face to face. But when there is no face to face interaction, what does yes or no mean? So the first one kind of harassment that I am talking about is the virtual harassment, such as friending a person on Facebook and sending offensive comments via Messenger, or creating a Facebook page or an Instagram account or a TikTok account, and then using these to express personal thoughts for a person whose attention may directly or indirectly be drawn through posts, pictures, or references and tags. The second one that I'm talking about is sending unwanted material, such as snapshots, poems, without asking for consent. And number 3 is a very important thing: cyber stalking, which is the act of obsessively following someone on their social media networks and blogs, commenting, often putting up posts that would be harmful for the other person. So, in all this, we must think of how social media has ushered in a new era of taking advantage of the loosened hold of accountability, in which ordinary people are emboldened by smartphones and social media to document the world around them, from the events they witness to the lived experiences that define their lives. Now, in a kind of a sweeping statement, if I say all this is bad, that's also a problem. Because we all know, especially in JNU, that we have sometimes survived because we have been able to record events. We have had ample instances in the last 4 years where we have survived because we have had evidences. But that said, this can also be turned into a weapon to use against people from whom a certain kind of response may have been expected and not been received, and then to inadvertently kind of cause more and more harm by just stalking. It's almost like stalking is almost like cyber stalking is almost like stalking in real time. So following a person on social media constantly, being there, constantly remarking, constantly almost like looking at that person through the media platforms is, if it is not wanted, then if it is a form of harassment. Now, at the same time, available cameras and the pursuit of viral hits has normalized the idea of sharing not only our lives with the world, but those of people around us who have no idea they are being recorded, let alone consent to have their experiences live streamed to the entire planet. In some cases, this sharing can actually endanger lives. Should social media platforms institute new rules requiring model releases and proof of consent when it comes to sharing imagery, especially of non-news events? Now that's a question that cannot be answered totally by us. Social media is big. It's governed by certain kinds of modes of money-making, organizations. We don't have control over what goes on all the time. But we need to understand where we are going against our social realms and boundaries. So the web has changed societal norms, including those around consent and sharing. In the social era, all such considerations have gone out of the window in pursuit of a viral fame. So the very concept of copyright and permission is antithetical to social platforms, and when it comes to citizen-produced imagery and videos, consensual releases and even verbal permission are almost non-existent. The end result is a world in which everyone carries what amounts to an internet-connected camera that can instantly share images with the entire planet. Now again, this has good sides as well as bad sides. If it's used as a weapon to harass people, then we need to think whether we are making good use of what is available to us in the form of the latest technology. So these people who share also feel entitled to share their innermost feelings instantly through a rant on social media. And if told not to, often pat comes the reply that I have not violated anybody's space. I have not named anybody. I have not given the address. I have not said anything particularly personal. But harassment works in a particular manner. It actually pinpoints a certain person without naming, because it actually is addressed to a community of followers, especially in a community like JNU or any other university space. classmates know each other. Many of the students know each other. Many of the teachers, all teachers know the students. So it is a space where the remarks made not directly but indirectly also many a times are done with an intention to create a community which is divided. Some are following and admiring this person who is coming out with love or hate of a person, but also, on the other hand, the people who would then find it alarming and impossible to tolerate. So this leads to mild and on the other end of the spectrum, severe situations of harassment. The societal etiquette has not quite caught up with social media, or let's say people have started to think it as discardable. The smartphone equipped adults believe many a times it is their right to photograph or record anyone, anywhere, and share that interaction with the world, regardless of whether it has anything to do with them or is net-worthy in any way. We are all living a reality show where our personal messagings are concerned sometimes. As a performance scholar, I see this as a kind of performance that we all now have a right to carry on in public domain, on social media. And in this kind of a space, we also need to look at the idea of consent. So, the idea of consent is no longer required when photographing or recording someone and broadcasting them to the world has unfortunately expanded from public space to our private spaces behind closed doors. Revenge pornography and other non-consensually shared imagery has become commonplace online, in part because of this shift in societal views towards consent that view permission as no longer necessary. Putting this all together, for some reason, society increasingly views it as acceptable to snap a photograph of a stranger on the street without their knowledge and share with the world, or capture intimate imagery of a partner without their knowledge or consent and share it with the planet. I would like to stop here for a while and look at the comments. I would like you to ask me comments, and I would be very happy to take them on in our discussions. So I don't see any particular question asked, though there are many people who have logged in, and I'm happy to see all of you. And I feel that we are part of a very, very important conversation going on today. So in today's session, I would definitely like to emphasize that in case of sexual harassment and bullying and stalking, as in everyday life, the victims are mainly young adults, children, and women. Unfortunately, true. In today's modern era, instances of bullying, abuse, and sexual harassment have increased in cyberspaces, especially on social media, and it becomes prudent to look at other hard truths. And now I will go on to actually outline some of very, very important truths that we must keep in mind, we must think of as our duty to stop, we must engage with in terms of understanding how to increase awareness about these kinds of issues of harassment and lack of consent. Some very important things to remember in this case is online sexual harassment is harassment. There is a horrible perception that threats made online are not real threats, but rather empty words written by a virtual avatar. This could not be further from truth. A threat is a threat, and an unwelcome comment is still an unwelcome comment, regardless of whether it is delivered face to face, over the phone, or through social media. Words hurt and can have irrevocable consequences for the victim, whether it be shrouded in a beautifully written poetry or sung out with some very popular Bollywood song. If it is unacceptable, then it is unacceptable. That is the bottom line. The hard truth number 2 is sexual harassment is common and very commonly faced by women on social media. According to many studies, a little less than half of all internet users, women, have experienced, especially women, but almost half of all internet users, male as well as females, have experienced some sort of online harassment. This news is even more troubling when you look at the demographic of young women between the ages of 18 to 24. Young women, those 18 to 24, experience certain severe types of harassment at disproportionately high levels. About 1/4 of these young women have been stalked online, and about 1/4 were the target of online sexual harassment. In addition, they do not escape the heightened rates of physical threats and sustained harassment common to their male peers and young people in general. Young adults are a target group. No one should be subjected to any kind of harassment, but the statistics on women being targeted are astounding, shocking, and completely unacceptable and must be stopped. And I don't think, again I'm saying, that I don't think that we can just hope that laws and strictures can stop this unless we become conscious of being or following a certain form of do's and don'ts in our own minds. So, the next hard truth: sexual harassment must be stopped at any cost. Socializing people about what exactly is harassment is the need of the hour. We need to speak about their experiences with sexual harassment on social media and how attackers can and should be held accountable. Socially, within friend circles, within circles where we know that person who is the harasser, and as well as in the court of law. As a society, we need to educate people, especially children and teenagers, about the dangers of online harassment, to be able to identify what is bullying and harassment, and lasting effects this behavior has on victims. No one asks to be harassed. No one asks to be harassed, sexually or otherwise. And no one deserves to be subjected to this derogatory and frightening behavior As a society, we must stand up and say enough is enough before these online threats spill over into the 3D world and come to fruition. So we need to be conscious. We need to say no. We need to stand by our friends who are being harassed. We need to stop. We need to report such sites. We need to report such posts. So we are talking about different kinds of harassments. We were talking about that. I would like to end with, before we take more comments, I am a bit disappointed that I'm not getting comments actually. But I would like to talk a little bit more in detail about the kinds of harassments that are common on social media. So cyber stalking, as I said, is when someone uses the internet to systematically and repeatedly harass, threaten, or intimidate someone. There are many ways this can be done. Some popular forms are through email, social media, or chat rooms. I'll share an experience. About 1.5 years back, 2 years back, I have received 22 emails from a person who is a scholar in JNU. And I actually thought that, I could not believe, because the moment I would come back home from somewhere outside, I would get an email saying, you were drinking coffee, and who was that with you? I am not talking about age here. I am not talking about circumstances here. I'm just saying that a person who is 60 years now can be intimidated, can feel as if there are eyes all around, large eyes which I can't see, but they are staring at me all the time. They know where I am, at which time. It's just like actual live stalking. So if you are a victim of cyber stalking, there are a few ways you can report it. Minors should tell their parents and trusted adults. If you are a victim, you should collect evidence of the conversations and documents. And you, as a student community, again I'm saying, living in a campus, in a kind of a closed community, it's essential that we stand by our friends. It's essential that we hear it without joking about, oh, it happens, oh, it's romance, oh, that person is so much in love with you. No. If that person is not feeling all right, then it is not all right. Whether it is a male or a female, it's not all right. And to be safe, you should also block the cyber stalker on all social media accounts, please. Please. You should also change your email and passwords to keep your information safe. But that onus should not be on the victim. That's what I importantly want to state. The onus on us as a community is to stop the person who is doing the wrong thing, not to make the victim feel more stressed and more burdened by ways in which she must think how she has encouraged this behavior. No, that's not on. That's not on at all. So the second one is catfishing. I don't think this is something that we face so often, but I think it is important. It is when someone on the internet creates a fictitious identity for the purpose of starting a relationship. This scam has become more and more common in the age of online dating. It's otherwise, maybe it's not a dangerous thing unless your details are accessed through a kind of intimacy which is slowly growing through a kind of a prolonged kind of a cyber relationship, and then it also can access passwords, bank accounts, and it can have other very serious implications, as you all know. And number 3 is called doxing. Doxing is someone's personal information being published online with the intention of others harassing them. We often see this, right? This could include anything from their address to phone number to information about their family. If the information that is released is public, doxing is not a crime. But if the information is private or the person broke the law to obtain it, the case can be illegal. To prevent doxing, be sure your information is private. Google yourself to see what information is published and take steps to remove it. Make sure all your internet profiles are private and use a VPN to protect your location. Proactively delete your data from data broker sites. The other one most of us have in the current years become accustomed to is trolling. And we all know, right, what it is. In JNU, we all have grown accustomed. The language, the way in which it almost always is from a fictitious name, from a fictitious identity, and the vicious language and complete irrational behavior online. But it can actually throw you off balance. It can cause enormous amount of stress, and that is harassment. Trolling is when someone makes unsolicited comments in an online community that are random or controversial in order to provoke emotion. These people are called trolls. And we all know what the meaning of trolls is, where it comes from nowadays. A troll can cause a fight or upset people while hiding behind the safety of their screen. The last one today is revenge porn. The term revenge porn refers to non-consensual pornography and the act of distributing private, sexually explicit images or videos without the person's consent. More often than not, this is done as a form of revenge. It can be both extremely invasive and traumatic. Non-consensual pornography of this nature can stem from sexting, which is when people text each other nude photos. If these photos are unwanted or get into the hands of someone they aren't intended for, it can lead to a revenge porn case. Online harassment, and with this I will end my portion of the talk. Online harassment can be difficult to pinpoint, very, very difficult. The definition of online harassment can vary between people and cases. Mild situations can escalate quickly. The bully can manipulate you into thinking it's not as bad as it may be. The actions of others may seem to be out of your control. And sometimes, when the victim is being bullied within a community, it can be disheartening and it can cause terrible anxiety when you see other people within the community supporting the harasser. And in all this, as I said, there is no way of establishing directly sometimes, in many a times, that the harasser is actually targeting a particular person, because there's no name. There's a beautiful poetry. Tum hote, to main, whatever. ऐसे कुछ poetry बोल दिया. Beautifully sung songs. Or, a kind of address which is left on the status, and everyone in the class knows who it is meant for and why it is being said. Imagine being at the receiving end of such a thing. So let's all get together. Let's do more and more such programs on all media, in a kind of day-to-day, everyday, campus-based awareness program, so that we avoid these kinds of sexual harassment and trauma that it causes its victims. Now, I would like to really see comments. I don't know whether I will, but I will search for what people have said. Let's see. It's good to see you guys as well. Many of you have said good to see you. It is good to see you. So, Priyanka Basu says, there is a thin line where the harassed doesn't fathom harassment. How do we actively intervene there as individuals, as women? Priyanka, thank you for your great question. So as I said, that intervening leads to sometimes almost like a reaction that you're interfering in my life by the victim herself or himself, and that can put you off. But I think as a community, if we are on the lookout, if we are looking at looking out for our women friends, for the kind of mood swings, for the anxiety attacks that are very common and often not easy to hide, I think we will be able to consciously step in. I know that private spaces are to be respected nowadays even more than before. We are conscious that we can't step into somebody else's life, which is why, Priyanka, it's much more important that, as women, young adults, and even kids who are using social media, we need to make people conscious about saying no, about how important it is to stop unwanted or something that is irritating as a kind of comment or as a kind of following, as a kind of stalking, which becomes really some sort of a harassment. I think many of us have actually kind of digested harassment till it was too late, and then we have had to stop it somehow. So it is something that we live and learn. Meanwhile, it is very, very important to create consciousness in the community itself, in student community, within the employers, within the larger society, that it is important to have a certain kind of etiquette governing the behavior that often social media leads us to. It's a platform which we imagine as a platform where I can say anything. So rants are proudly proclaimed now, and there is a rant, and then people would go absolutely all out to attack. And things that people normally would never say come out in a form of a rant. So social media is such a place where you can take a lot of freedom. I'm hoping that there would be a kind of a slowly this awareness will become more and more. But at the moment, it doesn't seem like it. It looks like the whole space is becoming more and more murky. And unless we are very active in stopping it, we are in for trouble. So Parvati Rajendran is saying, About consent during my fieldwork, I was told by photographers how many of their board meetings insisted on the human element in all the photos that is likely to be printed. This obviously included sorry, just a minute. Oh, it's a long thing. I can't. This obviously included photos of random people taken and printed on front page of online equivalent of city editions, lifestyle sections. I personally have been finding this difficult to understand because of the ethical problem of photographing someone without their knowledge for the specific purpose of publishing. A lot of these photographs land up in these photographers' personal social media accounts. How does one think of consent and harassment here? Where do we draw the line? It is very, very important to understand this. You see, in fieldwork etiquette, especially in fieldwork, ethnographic fieldwork, we have always taken this advantage. And in real life, of course, many published books, many published articles, and that is why it is so strongly now, media houses are very strongly kind of trying to control the copyright issues and stuff. But in social media, this is kind of again, as I said, that the social etiquette or the rules of even publishing do not exist on social media, and they have not developed fully on social media. So we don't think, it's almost like it's kind of a exhibition kind of a space. You show your prowess. That's why I asked those first 3 questions. Why do you actually post? Do you post because you want to be somebody who you are actually not? Do you post with an eye towards the likes? How many likes did I get? And do you post because you are wanting to say something that you have no courage to say otherwise? So all these, it's something that is not, it doesn't have a very clear answer, but it is a very, very important thing to discuss. And as long as we discuss, we will surely arrive at more and more clear definitions, and thereby would be able to address such harassments. Ratul Ghosh asks, please say something about threat and vulgar attacks and what will be done after that, coming from Sanghis and Bhakts. Yes. So what will be done after that? I was saying about, in the very beginning, that the very posts, the very freedom that has given us at least some way of recording the things that have gone on in our lives in the last 4 years in JNU. Though sometimes we have submitted video after video for evidence and nothing has happened. So coming from a particular kind of source, as you know, it's a specialized action, a training almost, that now is the action that is evident in the works of the Sanghis and Bhakts. And we have had to deal with this new culture where no debate is possible. The debate is always answered by something very violent and vulgar attack. I suppose, there are 2-3 things that I think are very, very important. One is that in the times such as this has become the new normal. But we must continue our debates, our ways in which we clearly state and we accept platforms that can debate, but we will not engage in platforms that are vulgar or actually is full of threats, and also comes from identities which are actually not real. In most cases, names are not real. In most cases, identities are not real. Akshay talks about Raya Sarkar and the publication of the sexual harassers in academia. They were exposed online. Few of the academicians have cited this as harassment. How do you see this? What do you think of exposing the people when all legal social systems fail to acknowledge the survivors' accounts? I think it's a tough call to take whether somebody has a right to create a list like that and put it out. There have been a lot of debates about it. But I think it has also done something exceptional in the times where all onus of keeping silent, of digesting such unwanted advances have been on the victim. Always the onus was on the victim. But that said, this is a question we can actually take on at some other platform, because I was actually specifically talking about cyber harassment, and I would like to continue answering such questions. So, what is your opinion on bullying online on the basis of caste? Sumit Kataria asks, how to tackle the caste discrimination and harassment online or social media. So this is one of the very, very important things. Like, I was also looking at statistics and I was seeing that bullying and stalking is always faced more by the most vulnerable, and it includes caste-based bullying in a very severe manner. It includes homophobic bullying in a very severe manner. It includes women-centric bullying. It includes young adults bullying. So the thing is that caste-based bullying is a very specific problem, and we have to tackle it with whatever is necessary. So again, I talk about, at this point, since the community needs to stand by such a victim, it is the onus, and because we are on the JNU SFI unit side, I would like to state this clearly that we need to build consciousness, and we need to say no together to such things. If I see this bullying going on and if I keep silent, I am as much to blame as the bully himself. I am as much to blame. And if I do that, then I have no way of hiding myself and saying something to justify why I did it. So we need to be, and also at times it is important to understand that a community can actually really work, really, when there is no other way, where there are people who are not listening to you, there are no ways in which you are able to stop it. It's something the community can stop. And also it is in on certain sites, after much of problem, there are ways in which some of it, only a little bit of it, can be stopped, and one must report on the cybercrime cells. Just now I saw one of my colleagues has written that somebody has threatened to post some videos online, objectionable photographs and videos of his, unless he gives some money to this person. So, and this colleague of mine is a retired professor from JNU. So he is above 65 in age, and this can happen to him. And this is a male colleague. So, the way in which social media has given us certain kinds of freedoms, if we don't understand how to use it, then the only answer is to be able to understand and pinpoint such problems the moment it happens. So, Tony Subra, what do you think when state backs and sometimes sponsor directly or indirectly such things? That is the prime source of such thing, is getting popular nowadays among others. I understand your question, and so what you see, there are ways in which certain crimes are recorded as crimes, and certain crimes are just pushed under the carpet. That's the time that we are living in. There are video evidences are not taken into account. So, but in case of cybercrime, in case of cyber harassment, usually it is a kind of almost like a paid machine, a paid group of people who are trained to do the trolling, who are trained to do the vulgar messaging, texting, and sometimes flooding the internet, the social media, with such horrible bullying activities. In that case, do report, because only yesterday I saw that there's a celebrity's sister has been actually locked out of Twitter because of the kind of comments that person had made. So in some manners, there are ways in which one can stop. At any point of time, we must not keep quiet. We must share with our friends our anxiety. We must share it with people. We must be there for our friends. I think we are almost reaching the end of our time. Anjana, yes, Anjana, sorry. Can you also particularly talk about harassment in progressive circles, where for not feeling comfortable in certain conversations or actions, the person is tagged as not progressive enough? Very important question. When the meaning of progressive is altered as per the convenience of a certain kind of a person and used as a weapon, it is harassment. An act of harassment, an act of saying something, even if it is something like, oh, this person is not liberal enough, she is or he is not progressive enough, he or she is living in some other era. It doesn't matter. If I feel uncomfortable If I feel that I want to say no, then it's my right to say no at any point of time. I don't need to define myself. I don't need to justify myself and my behavior. I don't need your naming of me. And at that point, when does that naming hurt? When the community with me is not with me. When I feel that my friends are also smirking or laughing or actually kind of thinking, oh, she is really not progressive enough. Oh, what is the harm in saying, encouraging? He's only showing you admiration. No, I don't care. It could be very well-meaning. It would be lovely. It could be the most beautiful person on earth, the wonderful most event. If I feel that it is not on, then it is not on. It's like, and using social media, this saying things without consent, it's taken to a level where you really don't even know until and unless you hear from a friend that, oh, didn't you see? There was this one poem which has come up. And it has been posted 5 times in the last evening, every hour. So, it is harassment. Can we have a supporting community collective? Gaurav Ghosh says, I'm assuming none is there to fight homophobia on social media, like reporting, emotional support. Maybe we can start one in JNU. That's a thought you could mull over. In general, it is a very necessary thing. Maybe something to talk about in all kinds of bullying. And so, people, I have 4 minutes. Okay, so Akshat says, I saw a tendency among a section of students, both men and women, to readily participate in confession pages as if they are a kind of fun and consider it okay. Can you talk about the need to have fun? I'll see more. Where is it? Okay, can you talk about the need to have fun which does not involve making lives uncomfortable for women as confession pages do by salacious gossip? Very, very important. This is a very, very important question. Maybe we would end with this and I would like you to think that fun at somebody else's cost is not cool. Some days back on Facebook, I saw a post by a person very dear to me, very young, as old as my son, posting, saying that, numbers of domestic abuse and abuse of children has increased in the time of lockdown. And it's increased horrendously, actually. So, and he posted these few lines. Below that, the comments were smileys, laughing smileys. So, are you okay? Are you surviving? Somebody wrote. And this is a male person writing there. The person who wrote originally was a male. And there were people who were writing below, who were laughing, who were joking, who were making fun, and not taking it seriously. So then, I was actually really shocked at seeing that sensible people many of them in sensible professions, responsible professions, are actually uneasy about facing the fact that domestic abuse is something where women get affected more than men. And so to kind of turn it on its back, to make a fun of it, was the way that they were making light of the situation and pushing it aside. And I was wondering, since India has this horrendous kind of domestic abuse rate especially against women, so horrendously high domestic abuse, so maybe some of them were actually hiding their own selves behind those comments. And this sense of fun is a source of power, right? It's all about power, actually. Sexual abuse, sexual harassment, not heeding consent are in ways in which one wants to feel more powerful than the others in some manner or the other. So it's not on those, and people in these pages, that it is not fun is to be established by the people who are actually showing thumbs up signs. They need to think. They need to be made to think. And it's something over and over again. If it is not sweet words that will make them understand, then it has to be sterner words. It has to be constant, driving into their minds that it is not on. I think we have come to the end of the session. Thank you all for being such wonderful listeners, and comments were fantastic. I hope I have been able to do justice, and if I have left somebody without answering questions, I'm very sorry. So have a good evening and think about it. Do think about it. Do write, do post comments, and do reach out. Thank you very much, SFI JNU unit, for giving me this chance. Thank you.